The power you fear the most is the one that hides behind silence, coldness, and unpredictability. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg for permission. It simply takes what it wants while you're still wondering what happened. Most people walk through life thinking fairness wins. They believe kindness gets rewarded. They trust that following the rules protects them. And then one day, someone cold, calculated and ruthless walks into their life and flips everything upside down. That person doesn't play by the rules. They write their own. 500 years ago, a man named Machiavelli wrote down what everyone was too afraid to say out loud. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't make it pretty. He laid bare the brutal truth about power, control, and survival, and people have been terrified of his words ever since. This isn't about being a good person. This isn't about morality or justice. This is about understanding the game that's being played around you every single day. Because whether you like it or not, ruthless people exist, and they're winning. Here's what most people don't realize. The rules you follow weren't made by people like you. They were made by people in power to keep you in line. Think about that for a second. The system rewards rule breakers at the top, while punishing rule breakers at the bottom. The powerful play a different game entirely, and they don't want you to know the rules. So the question is simple. Will you keep pretending the world is fair, or will you finally face the ruthless power you've been avoiding? Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I see the game. Number 1. Weakness versus strength. You can be the nicest person in the room. You can follow every rule, treat everyone with respect, and never hurt a soul. And you know what happens? People take advantage of you. They use your kindness as a doormat. They exploit your fairness because they know you won't fight back. Ruthless people don't see kindness as virtue. They see it as vulnerability. They see someone who can be manipulated, someone who won't push back when pushed, someone who values being liked more than being respected. Here's the truth Machiavelli understood. Strength isn't about being the loudest or the meanest. It's about refusing to be used. It's about drawing lines that no one can cross without consequences. It's about making people think twice before they try anything with you. Weak people react emotionally. They get upset. They complain. They plead for fairness. Strong people act strategically. They stay calm. They observe. And they strike when it counts. Let me tell you about something called the doormat effect. When you're too accommodating, people don't respect you more. They respect you less. They see you as someone without boundaries, someone they can push around. And once that image sets in, breaking it takes 10 times more effort than preventing it in the first place. The ruthless understand this instinctively. They don't waste time trying to be everyone's friend. They focus on being someone no one dares to disrespect. They establish boundaries early and enforce them consistently. And people learn quickly where the line is. Machiavelli once said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. For everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." That's the game right there. Most people judge you by how you appear, not by who you actually are. If you appear weak, you'll be treated as weak. If you appear strong, you'll be treated as strong. Reality matters less than perception. You don't have to become heartless, but you do have to stop being an easy target. Because in a world full of sharks, being a goldfish gets you eaten. The choice isn't between being good or bad. It's between being respected or being used. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. Did you let it slide? Did you make excuses for them? Did you convince yourself it wasn't a big deal? That's weakness. Not the disrespect itself, but your acceptance of it. Strong people don't ignore disrespect. They address it immediately, clearly, and without apology. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Strength over approval. Number 2. Entering God mode. There's a mental state that ruthless people operate from. It's cold, detached, and completely free from the emotions that paralyze most people. Let's call it God mode. When you're in God mode, guilt doesn't touch you, approval doesn't move you, fear doesn't control you. You see situations for what they are, not what you wish they were. You make decisions based on logic, not feelings. You act without needing someone to pat you on the back and tell you you're a good person. Most people can't do this. They're trapped in their emotions. They need validation. They need reassurance. They need everyone to like them. And that need makes them weak. Because the moment you need something from someone, they have power over you. Ruthless people don't need anything from anyone. They operate from a place of complete self-sufficiency. They make their own rules. They decide their own standards. They don't ask for permission, and they don't apologize for their choices. This doesn't mean they're emotionless robots. It means they control their emotions instead of letting their emotions control them. They feel anger, but they don't explode. They feel hurt, but they don't break. They feel fear, but they don't freeze. Think about a surgeon performing a critical operation. They can't afford to get emotional about the patient's condition. They can't let fear shake their hands. They need absolute clarity, absolute focus, absolute detachment from anything that doesn't serve the outcome. That's God mode. Now apply that to your life. How many decisions have you made because you were afraid of what people would think? How many opportunities have you passed up because you didn't want to seem aggressive or selfish? How many times have you silenced your own interests to keep the peace? Every single one of those moments was you giving away power. Machiavelli once said, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." In other words, when you're truly committed to something, obstacles become irrelevant. But most people aren't committed. They're conflicted. They want success, but they also want everyone to like them. They want power, but they also want to be seen as humble. They want respect, but they don't want to do anything that might offend someone. That internal conflict kills momentum. God mode eliminates it. You decide what matters. You commit fully, and everything else becomes noise. Here's how you start entering this state. Stop explaining yourself. When you make a decision, make it. Don't justify it to people who won't be affected by it. Don't seek approval from people who aren't living your life. Just act, and let your results speak for themselves. Second, practice emotional observation. When you feel anger, don't act on it immediately. Step back. Watch it. Ask yourself, is this emotion useful right now? If yes, channel it strategically. If no, let it pass. You're not suppressing emotions. You're mastering them. Third, eliminate the word should from your vocabulary. I should be nicer. I should care more about their feelings. I should make everyone comfortable. Says who? Who decided these rules? And more importantly, are those rules serving you or controlling you? God mode is about clarity. It's about seeing the chessboard while everyone else is just reacting to the pieces. It's about thinking 3 moves ahead while they're stuck on move 1. And once you enter God mode, you realize something powerful. Most people are predictable. Their emotions make them easy to read. Their need for approval makes them easy to influence. Their fear of conflict makes them easy to navigate around. You don't need to be cruel. You just need to be awake. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Clarity over comfort. Number 3. Power through invisibility. Here's something most people get wrong about power. They think it's loud. They think it's about being seen, being heard, being at the center of attention. That's not power, that's performance. Real power moves in silence. It shapes outcomes without being noticed. It influences decisions without fingerprints. It changes the game while everyone else is still arguing about the rules. Ruthless people don't need the spotlight. They don't need credit. They don't need their name on the trophy. They just need the result. And when you're not chasing applause, you become dangerous. Because people underestimate you. They don't see you coming until it's too late. Think about it. The people who talk the most usually have the least power. They need attention because they're insecure. They need validation because they doubt themselves. They need everyone to know what they're doing because they're afraid of being forgotten. But the person sitting quietly in the corner, saying nothing, watching everything, that person is the one you should worry about. Because they're collecting information. They're calculating angles. They're waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. Let me give you a real example. In any workplace, who actually has power? Not the person with the biggest title necessarily. It's the person who knows where all the bodies are buried. The one who understands the informal networks. The one who can get things done through connections nobody else even knows exist. They operate invisibly, but their influence is everywhere. Machiavelli once said, "He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." That's the power of invisibility. People see what they expect to see. They judge based on appearances. They make assumptions based on who's loud and who's quiet. And those assumptions create blind spots you can exploit. Invisible power is about influence, not authority. It's about planting ideas instead of giving orders. It's about creating situations where people do what you want without knowing you wanted it. Here's how it works. Instead of telling someone what to do, you shape the information they receive. You control the context. You frame the options. And suddenly, the choice they make independently is exactly the choice you needed them to make. That's influence. That's invisible power. The ruthless master this art. They don't dominate through force. They dominate through positioning. They put themselves in places where outcomes naturally benefit them. They shape environments so the path of least resistance leads exactly where they want it to go. Think about water. It doesn't fight against obstacles. It flows around them. It finds the cracks, the weaknesses, the paths of least resistance. And over time, water shapes mountains. That's invisible power. Constant, patient, unstoppable influence that changes everything without making noise. And the best part? When things go wrong, no one blames them, because no one saw them there in the first place. They maintain plausible deniability. They keep their hands clean. They operate in the shadows where accountability doesn't reach. This doesn't mean being sneaky or dishonest. It means being strategic about when to be visible and when to be invisible. Sometimes you want credit, sometimes you don't. The ruthless choose based on what serves their interests, not their ego. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Silent and strategic. Number 4, the weapon of fear. Let's talk about something that makes most people uncomfortable. Fear works. Not the kind of fear that comes from screaming or threatening or being aggressive. That's just noise. That's weak people pretending to be strong. Real fear is quieter. It's psychological. It's the kind that lives in someone's mind long after you've left the room. Ruthless people understand that love is fragile. People love you today and forget you tomorrow. Love requires constant maintenance, constant validation, constant proof that you're worth loving. It's exhausting and unreliable. But fear is durable. Fear doesn't need daily reminders. Once someone understands your boundaries, that understanding sticks. It shapes how they think about you, how they talk about you, how they act around you. It creates respect without you having to enforce it every single time. Now, I'm not talking about making people terrified of you. That's counterproductive. I'm talking about healthy fear, the kind that makes people think twice before crossing you, the kind that establishes clear boundaries and consequences. Think about someone you respect deeply, someone you would never dream of disrespecting. Chances are there's an element of fear in that respect. Not fear that they'll hurt you, but fear of disappointing them, fear of losing their respect, fear of crossing a line you know exists. That's the kind of fear ruthless people cultivate. It's professional, it's controlled, it's effective. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions." People respond to immediate consequences more than future rewards. Fear is immediate. It triggers survival instincts. It creates instant behavioral change. Love and trust take time to build and even longer to influence behavior. This doesn't mean you walk around intimidating people. That's amateur hour. Controlled fear is subtle. It's in your reputation. It's in the stories people tell about you. It's in the fact that everyone knows you don't tolerate disrespect, even if they've never seen you respond to it. The ruthless build this kind of presence through consistency. They establish lines. They enforce consequences. They never let disrespect slide, not even once. And word spreads. People talk. And suddenly, you don't have to do anything. Your reputation does the work for you. Imagine someone constantly shows up late to meetings with you. Most people complain but do nothing. The ruthless, they address it once, clearly. Your time management affects my schedule. This doesn't happen again. No anger, no drama, just clarity and consequence. And it never happens again, because that person just learned where the boundary is. That single moment creates a ripple effect. Other people hear about it. They adjust their behavior preemptively. You've established a standard without having to enforce it repeatedly. Fear isn't about being cruel or aggressive. It's about being clear, consistent, and uncompromising on standards. It's about establishing that certain behaviors have consequences and following through every single time. Most people are all talk. They complain about disrespect but never address it. They threaten consequences but never deliver them. The ruthless do the opposite. They say less and do more. And that consistency builds a reputation that precedes them. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Respect through boundaries. Number 5. Unpredictability and silence. Predictable people are powerless people. When someone knows exactly how you'll react, they control you. They can push your buttons, manipulate your emotions, and steer you wherever they want. Ruthless people refuse to be predictable. They refuse to be read. They keep people guessing, and that uncertainty creates power. Silence is one of the most underrated weapons in existence. When you don't react, people panic. They fill the silence with their own fears, their own doubts, their own insecurities. They start imagining what you're thinking. They start worrying about what you might do. And that mental chaos gives you control without you saying a single word. Most people can't handle silence. They need to explain themselves, defend themselves, fill every gap with words. And every word they say gives away information. Every reaction shows their cards. Every outburst reveals their weaknesses. But when you stay silent, when you stay calm, when you refuse to give them the reaction they're fishing for, you become unreadable. And what they can't read, they can't control. Let me tell you about something called the information asymmetry advantage. In any interaction, whoever has more information has more power. When you talk, you give away information. When you stay silent, you collect it. The other person keeps talking, trying to fill the void, revealing more and more about their position, their fears, their strategies. Machiavelli once said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." That's unpredictability in action. Don't be bound by what people expect. Don't let past behavior dictate future choices. Keep people guessing about what you'll do next. That uncertainty creates psychological pressure that works in your favor. Ruthless people use unpredictability strategically. Sometimes they're generous, sometimes they're distant, sometimes they forgive, sometimes they don't, and no one can predict which version they'll get. That uncertainty keeps everyone off balance. It keeps rivals second-guessing. It keeps allies attentive because they don't want to risk being on the wrong side. How you practice this? Stop being so available. Stop responding immediately to every message. Stop being the person everyone can count on to react a certain way. Introduce unpredictability into your patterns. Sometimes respond quickly. Sometimes take days. Sometimes be warm. Sometimes be professional and distant. This isn't game playing. It's preventing other people from game playing with you. When they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Silence and unpredictability work together. Silence creates space for people's imaginations to run wild. Unpredictability makes sure their imaginations never settle on the truth. And in that confusion, you move freely while they stand frozen. Watch how powerful people handle conflict. They don't immediately react. They don't defend themselves frantically. They pause. They consider. They respond on their timeline, not the timeline the other person is trying to impose. That pause, that silence, that refusal to play by expected rules, that's where power lives. The next time someone tries to provoke you, tries to get a reaction, tries to make you explain yourself, just pause. Let the silence sit. Watch them squirm. Watch them fill the void with their own anxiety. And then, when you finally do respond, do it on your terms, in your timing, with your framing. That's the power of silence and unpredictability. It's not passive, it's strategic. It's not weak, it's intimidating, because people fear what they can't predict or control. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Silence is power. Number 6. Building presence and persona. Power isn't just what you do, it's what people believe you can do. It's the aura you create, the reputation you build, the presence that walks into a room before you do. Ruthless people understand this. They construct a persona so carefully, so strategically, that their mere existence commands respect. They don't need to prove themselves constantly. They don't need to fight for attention. Their presence does the work. This isn't about being fake. It's about being intentional. Every action, every word, every choice reinforces the image of who you want to be in people's minds. And once that image is solid, it becomes reality. Think about the people who intimidate you without trying. The ones who walk in and everyone straightens up. The ones who speak and everyone listens. They're not necessarily the strongest or the smartest, but they've built a presence that demands attention. Your presence is built on several key elements. First, consistency. If you say something, you do it. If you set a boundary, you enforce it. If you make a promise, you keep it. And if you establish a consequence, you follow through. People learn quickly who can be ignored and who can't. Make sure you're in the second category. Second, mystique. Don't reveal everything. Don't explain yourself constantly. Leave space for people to wonder, to speculate, to fill in gaps with their own assumptions. The unknown is always more powerful than the known. Third, composure. Never let them see you rattled. Never let them see you desperate. Never let them see you begging for approval or acceptance. Your emotional stability becomes part of your armor. Machiavelli once said, "One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." But here's the twist. You're not deceiving. You're curating. You're presenting the version of yourself that serves your interests. That's not dishonest. That's strategic. Everyone does it to some degree. The ruthless just do it consciously and effectively. Think about your online presence. You don't post your worst moments, your failures, your weaknesses. You curate what you share. That's building a persona. Now apply that same intentionality to your real-life presence. The ruthless don't waste energy trying to control everything directly. They build a presence so strong that people control themselves around them. They create an aura that makes people think twice before crossing lines, before disrespecting boundaries, before testing limits. Here's something crucial. Your presence must match your actions. If you build a reputation for being uncompromising, but then compromise constantly, your presence collapses. If you cultivate an image of being strategic, but make impulsive decisions, nobody takes you seriously. Alignment between image and action is everything. The persona isn't a mask you wear. It's an amplified version of who you actually are. And here's the secret. Once that presence is established, you barely have to maintain it. It maintains itself. Your reputation spreads, stories get told, and new people learn to respect you before they even meet you. That's efficiency. That's power working for you even when you're not in the room. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Presence over force. Number 7. Freedom from emotion. Emotions make you predictable. They make you vulnerable. They make you controllable. And ruthless people know this better than anyone. This doesn't mean emotions are bad. It means letting emotions control you is bad. There's a massive difference between feeling anger and acting on anger, between feeling fear and being paralyzed by fear, between feeling hurt and letting hurt dictate your decisions. Ruthless people feel everything, but they don't let those feelings run the show. They observe their emotions like data points, information to consider, not commands to follow. When you're free from emotional control, you make better decisions. You see situations clearly. You respond strategically instead of reactively. You stay 3 steps ahead while emotional people are still processing step 1. Most people are emotional puppets. Pull the right string and they dance exactly how you want them to. Insult their pride and they explode. Threaten their security and they panic. Play to their guilt and they fold. It's almost too easy. But when you're emotionally detached, those strings don't work on you. You can't be baited into stupid reactions. You can't be manipulated through your feelings. You can't be controlled through fear or shame or guilt. Let me share something critical. Every emotion you feel is trying to tell you something. Anger says, a boundary was crossed. Fear says, there's potential danger. Sadness says, something was lost. These are useful signals, but they're not instructions. The difference between emotional mastery and emotional suppression is this. Suppression ignores the signal. Mastery receives the signal, processes the information, then decides logically how to respond. Machiavelli once said, "Hatred is gained as much by good works as by evil." That's a harsh truth. You can't control whether people like you or hate you. Their emotions are their problem. So why would you let their emotional reactions dictate your behavior? Why would you sacrifice your interests to manage their feelings? Here's the truth. Your emotions are tools. Use them. Don't let them use you. Feel anger when it motivates decisive action. Feel compassion when it builds useful alliances. Feel fear when it sharpens your awareness and preparation. But never, ever let any emotion make decisions for you. Think about the last emotional decision you made. How did it turn out? Most emotional decisions look terrible in hindsight because they were made with incomplete information, clouded judgment, and short-term thinking. Now think about your best decisions, the ones that actually improved your life. Chances are they were made calmly, rationally, with clear thinking. That's not coincidence. The people who master this become untouchable. You can't hurt them because they don't take things personally. You can't scare them because they've already accepted worst-case scenarios. You can't shame them because they don't need your approval. You can't guilt them because they've made peace with their choices. That's freedom. Real freedom. And it's terrifying to people who are still enslaved by their feelings. Next time you feel a strong emotion, pause. Don't react. Just observe it. Where do you feel it in your body? What triggered it? What is it trying to tell you? And most importantly, is acting on this emotion right now going to serve your long-term interests? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. And that pause, that moment of observation, that's where you reclaim your power from your emotions. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Logic over emotion. Number 8. Legacy of ruthless power. Power isn't a moment. It's not about winning one fight or dominating one situation. Real power is an enduring presence that outlives single victories. The ruthless think in decades, not days. They build systems, not just wins. They create reputations that echo long after they've left the room. They establish legacies that shape how people think about power itself. History remembers the ruthless, not because they were nice, not because they were fair, but because they were effective. They changed things. They moved mountains. They bent reality to their will, while everyone else complained about how unfair it all was. Machiavelli understood this. His book, The Prince, was written over 500 years ago, and we're still talking about it, still learning from it, still afraid of it. That's legacy. That's power that transcends time. Building this kind of power requires patience. It requires consistency. It requires never compromising on your core principles, even when it's difficult, even when people criticize you, even when the easy path looks tempting. Think about what you want people to say about you when you're not in the room. Not what you want them to say to your face, but what you want your actual reputation to be. Powerful, strategic, uncompromising, reliable, dangerous to cross. Whatever that reputation is, you build it through consistent action over time. Every decision either reinforces or undermines it. There's no neutral. You're either building the legacy you want or building one by default. The ruthless maintain their power through mystery. They never show all their cards. They never reveal all their methods. They keep people guessing, wondering, speculating, and that mystery becomes part of their legend. They maintain power through selective displays of strength. Not constant aggression, but calculated demonstrations that remind everyone who they're dealing with. These moments become stories. Stories become reputation. Reputation becomes legacy. Machiavelli once said, "There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than by making men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you." In other words, build a reputation for valuing truth over comfort, for facing reality over illusion, for making hard decisions without flinching. That reputation becomes your armor. It attracts useful allies and repels time wasters. Here's something most people miss. Legacy isn't about being remembered fondly. It's about being remembered effectively. The ruthless aren't trying to win popularity contests. They're trying to shape outcomes, build empires, change systems. Think about the most powerful figures in history. Were they universally loved? Rarely. Were they respected? Absolutely. Were they effective? Undeniably. That's the trade-off. You can be liked or you can be powerful. Sometimes you get both. But if you have to choose, the ruthless choose power every time. And when they're gone, their influence remains. Their methods get studied. Their strategies get copied. Their names get mentioned with a mix of respect and caution. That's the legacy of ruthless power. Not being liked, not being understood, but being remembered as someone who changed the game. Your legacy starts today. Every decision, every boundary, every moment you choose strategy over emotion, every time you enforce a consequence instead of making an excuse, you're building it. The question is, what are you building? I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I build legacies. Number 9. Mastering patience and timing. Most people confuse ruthlessness with aggression. They think it's about attacking first, striking hard, dominating through force. That's not ruthless. That's reckless. True ruthlessness is patient. It's the ability to sit in discomfort, to absorb temporary setbacks, to watch opportunities pass by because the timing isn't right. And then, when the perfect moment arrives, to strike with precision that ends the game in one move. Impatient people burn out. They waste energy on small battles. They reveal their intentions too early. They show their hand before the pot is worth winning. And the ruthless watch them exhaust themselves and then step in to claim what's left. Patience is the invisible blade. It doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't feel threatening. It just waits, and waits, and waits, until everyone else has made their mistakes, shown their weaknesses, and created the exact opening that was needed all along. Timing is everything. The same action at the wrong time fails. The same action at the right time becomes legendary. Ruthless people understand this in their bones. They study patterns. They read situations. They feel the rhythm of power shifts and social dynamics. Think about nature. A lion doesn't chase every prey animal it sees. It waits. It watches. It conserves energy. And when the perfect target presents itself, when conditions are right, when success is almost guaranteed, then it strikes. Fast, decisive, overwhelming. That's not cruelty. That's efficiency. Machiavelli once said, God is not willing to do everything, and thus take away our free will and that share of glory which belongs to us. In other words, opportunities exist, but seizing them is your responsibility, and seizing them requires perfect timing. Act too early and you fail. Act too late and someone else wins. Act at the right moment and you appear unstoppable. Here's what patience looks like in practice. Someone disrespects you. Your ego wants immediate revenge. But patience says wait, collect more information, understand their position, find their vulnerabilities. And when the moment is right, when they've forgotten about it, when they're exposed, then you respond in a way they never see coming. That's not being passive. That's being strategic. There's a massive difference. Think about chess. Amateur players make moves constantly, always doing something, always reacting. Masters sit for minutes without moving. They're calculating. They're reading the board. They're waiting for the opponent to create the weakness they can exploit. Life is the same. Most people react constantly. They respond to every provocation, every insult, every challenge. They're always in motion, but never actually advancing. The ruthless sit back. They observe. They let others make mistakes. And when the time is right, they make the one move that changes everything. This kind of patience requires emotional control. Your ego wants to react now. Your pride wants revenge immediately. Your fear wants safety right this second. But patience says no, not yet. Wait for the right moment. Wait for maximum impact. Wait for the move they won't see coming. And when that moment arrives, strike with everything. No hesitation, no mercy, no second guessing. The time for patience is over. The time for action has come. And because you waited, because you prepared, because you timed it perfectly, the result is inevitable. That's the difference between power and posturing. Posturing is constant action with no impact. Power is strategic patience, followed by unstoppable execution. Most people give up too early because they lack patience. They want immediate results. They want instant gratification. They want success now. And that impatience makes them predictable, exploitable, and ultimately unsuccessful. The ruthless play the long game. They understand that real power compounds over time, that temporary setbacks don't matter if the ultimate victory is secured, that losing battles is acceptable if you're winning the war. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Patience is strategy. So let's bring this full circle. The ruthless power you're afraid to face is the power that never asks. It takes. It doesn't beg for permission or wait for approval. It sees what it wants and finds a way to get it. This power lives in silence, in patience, in calculated moves that most people never see coming. It operates from a place of emotional freedom, where guilt and fear don't cloud judgment. It builds presence without needing validation. It creates respect through boundaries. It influences without being seen. Machiavelli wasn't teaching people to be evil. He was teaching them to be awake, to see the world as it actually is, not as we wish it were, to understand that power exists whether we acknowledge it or not. And the choice isn't between good and evil. It's between being powerful or being powerless. You don't have to become ruthless, but you do have to understand ruthlessness. Because people who understand power will always dominate people who pretend it doesn't exist. Look around your life right now. Who has power over you? Who controls your emotions? Who can manipulate your decisions? Who can cross your boundaries without consequences? These aren't abstract questions. These are real people creating real limitations in your life. The question isn't whether these tactics work. They do. History proves it. Every empire, every dynasty, every great leader used some version of these principles. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you remain vulnerable, hoping that being good is enough in a world full of sharks? Or will you develop the awareness, the strategy, the presence to protect yourself and pursue your goals without apology? The ruthless power you're afraid to face is already out there. It's operating in your workplace, in your relationships, in every competitive space you enter. Other people are already using these principles. The only question is whether you'll learn them too. The world doesn't reward fairness. It rewards effectiveness. It doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your results. It doesn't ask if you're a good person. It asks if you're a powerful person. Before you go, if this video opened your eyes to something you've been avoiding, hit that like button. If you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's too accommodating for their own good, someone who keeps getting taken advantage of, share this video with them. They need to see this. And if you want more content that cuts through the comfortable lies and tells you the uncomfortable truth about power, psychology, and human nature, subscribe to this channel. We don't sugarcoat reality here. We face it head-on. We talk about what works, not what should work. The ruthless power you were afraid to face. You just faced it. Now the question is, will you master it, or will you let it master you? The choice has always been yours. Make it count.